G'day everybody, it's Max and welcome back to InfraSpace, the experiment. That's right, and today is the big day. That's right, we have reached top tier of InfraSpace. We have all the buildings. Tier 6, it looks good. We've got all the peoples upgraded. It's looking great. Now it's time for the rest of the mega experiment. We are going to start plopping down. We're going to plop down all these landing pads in our other districts, and I'm going to break them down into smaller zones just to see what happens as we try to populate each one. And of course, once that begins, we know the city will hold over 20,000 people. The question is will it fill the city with 20,000 people? So let's get to it. Okay, we're back again, and in this case, I've actually been letting the game just run for a while. In fact, let's slow the game down just a little bit. Once the last episode was done, and we're letting the city fill out. You'll notice that all the buildings are now level 6, and once they got to level 6, of course, this is when you get to kind of see like your little exposures of where you may have a few weaknesses. So turned out I had to put in some extra schooling here on the left as these buildings were finishing filling out. Schooling was starting to fall short, but it seems to be okay now. And on the right, fine meals was a problem. Turned out that we were running a little short. So in both cases, we kind of beefed up. I'm so funny. Yes, we beefed up the food processing. So now each of our 4 sectors has 3 food processing sector manufacturers, and each of those they're running flat out, right? I mean, they are doing the things. And of course, we've added entire new meat processing areas. I overdid it. Yes, I did. Where on this side I didn't really have a lot of room to do that, so I just made a separate block and then divided it between the two. On this side, I managed to squeeze them in enough to be able to feed these, and of course they're now keeping up. Once that kind of caught up and did its thing, things have been very balanced. Well, it's probably been running for over an hour and just and it's perfectly fine. Now let's have a look at this. The population info, the immigration rate is currently high because, of course, as far as the game is concerned, the rest of the city doesn't exist, and it's this was always the experiment I always kind of wondered about. Right now. Obviously, once I'd had all the balancing issues worked out and all the stuff, I had saved game and, of course, tried some experimentation. Sure enough, the second we hook up any part of this city to anything, everything's going to start falling apart. Now, it doesn't fall apart as in we degrade. That isn't what happens. The city still remains the city, and it's awesome, right? This part just carries on forever, right? What happens is that the immigration rate tanks to the floor, right? So right now, almost 1,000 people want to move into our city because it is just so awesome, or what they think is so awesome. The second we hook up these neighborhoods, though, of course, the average habitat level will drop, right? Will drop from 6 all the way down to, well, subpar, like, say 3. I think it turns out to be like 4.25, because these are already at level 2s, right? So it drops to about 4.25, and then everything just stops working. Now, the current citizens don't move out, but getting any more people to move in just doesn't happen. So it doesn't matter that the city can hold 21,000 people. Getting 21,000 people to move in is the problem. One, there isn't enough resources on the map to fill out the other 3 areas of city like this. I did give it a try. I did give it a shot, and it did not go as well as I'd hoped, unfortunately. In fact, the big problem was home appliances, and sure enough, when you lose home appliances, you basically lose most of your city because it is very low on the list. So obviously, when you lose home appliances, it doesn't matter that you have parks and home robots and culture and any of that stuff. Yeah, everybody moves out, and that 18 drops to like 10. Boom. And that's what happens. You basically lose half the population of your city literally within 10 minutes, and the whole thing crashes down. It is a mechanic that really needs like some sort of adjustment. I can understand, okay, you're not getting home appliances anymore, you're going to be upset, blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to cripple your city, if it's going to cripple the city just because, and I mean, lots of things will do that, right? A traffic jam can cripple the city and kill your city, right? So it is something to be very, very careful of all the time. But I have tried 2-3 different ways to keep the immigration rate high, and I have been unable to do so. So it's a thing that happens. As soon as we unplug the plugs, this number tanks. It goes to 1, and that's it. Now, yes, the game will still immigrate one at a time, and yes, I guess I could leave the game running for the next 20 days or so on the computer, and it would eventually fill out the rest of the city. But that's not exactly a good use of my power or of my time. We obviously would like to have had that come in a little faster. But we are going to do it in this episode. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up of what's going to happen before we actually have it happen. So I'm actually going to do a save here. I'm going to I'm going to set up the landing pads. This all needs to be set up, right? So we need to set up, I mean, we couldn't just put landing pads in here. All these people would starve, right? Yes, right now they have oxygen and survival food, but that's because of each zone has had like one atmosphere processor filling all the buildings. And because there's nobody living here, it's not being used, right? So all of this has just been sitting here waiting for somebody to move in. But of course, as soon as we start actually putting people into these zones, this stuff will get used. And sure enough, we need to have enough stuff to populate it. Now, the other thing is, of course, is like, for example, this zone is way too big to try and tackle this at once. It just will not hold the amount of population. So even though we're about to tank the immigration rate, we can only afford to put in so much food and oxygen at a time into each of these sections. So what we want to do is we want to break these down a little more, and that way when we do trigger the whole event, we actually set this up. So I'm going to bring you back, and when I do, I'm going to have this all broken down into probably what I would call like a 4 quads. Lines of 4 buildings each. And of course, then we're going to get ready to have landing pads on them, turn it all on, and then we'll watch the number tank. But we're also going to get to see, we're going to see 1,000 people move in, because we know 1,000 people want to move in. So, they're going to get pretty excited, and they're all going to move in. And then, of course, we're going to see it level off. Now, then we'll talk about a little bit at the end here about the developers' tools and about how you can use dev tools to do a little thing. I have a separate video tips and tutorial on the dev tools, but we're going to have a look at here at the end of this anyway, just to see what it is we can do with it. So I'm going to bring you right back. We're going to turn things on and see what happens. Okay, so with all the areas now pre-geared up, right? So each area has a little O2, has a basic farm, right? Because that's their basic needs, oxygen and survival food. They each now have landing pads. I've given each neighborhood, most neighborhoods now, District 1, the rest of District 1 has 6 pads. But each of the rest of the neighborhoods each gets 2 pads. Now, the number of pads I don't think really matters all that much. Only because it seems that they're going to fly them in when the ship lands. If it's going to if it has hundreds of people, like literally pink cars pour out everywhere. But if a ship lands and it's like only like one person, like the ship lands and does nothing, right? So I don't think the number of landing pads or anything like that actually has some sort of impact. Yeah, I fixed a power pole. That will go away here in a second. So this is paused, right? Because I couldn't have these landing pads touch these neighborhoods in an active state. This would crash. Basically, we're going to crash the market, right? If you thought your housing value was high now, it's about to take a dump. So what we're about to do is we're going to now unpause this. These numbers over here are going to change. You bet. And in fact, what we should see is some changes over here too. But I'm not so worried about those because the main city itself is on its own grid. It's not going to get hurt. It will be fine. Okay. And as for these other districts, which are now like kind of mini districts, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like we probably have like Pan Am here in 13 districts. So I guess we have District 1. I don't know where District 13 is. It's buried in the mountain there somewhere, I guess. But we're gonna hit the button. This is gonna take a dive. We're gonna see a bunch of ships come in, and we're gonna see just how many people it will pack before it runs out. So there is the start. It's doing a calculation. It's like, yeah. Now, see, the demand is still really high because it has not taken in. See, now it's starting to calculate, right? And it's like, oh, what's all these new houses? But it's still going to keep that population number high. Like, see, look at the cars pouring out, right? Like, no ships have landed here. Okay? And as long as this number could stay above that, it would be fine. But now, see, now it's dropping, right? Now it's dropping, and, it is what it is. It's now moving now into the low range. Now it's down 0-1. You notice the cars have now just suddenly just stopped coming out. They were like, okay. And that's it. That is it. So, hey, look at all the spaceships coming in. That looks really cool. Except that isn't going to make any difference. Because now our average habitat level is now dropping all the time, right? It's now down to 533, and it's going to keep dropping as it continues to recalculate more and more of these numbers. And at the same time, the number of immigrants to move in is now 0, basically, right? Now, it will actually, see, that went from 45, 47, 52. It will actually... It will actually bring in small amounts of people. Unfortunately, it is not going to be a fast process, right? Like this number will slow down here relatively soon, really, really slow, and then that's about it, right? It kind of just creeps along, throwing a number in there every once in a while, and it's all good. Now you'll notice these are all level 2 citizens. So we've gotten 1,600 level 2 citizens because that's all these neighborhoods are. They're just level 2s. Let's switch over to production overview for a second. We'll just double check that the O2 isn't running short on them. It's not. I mean these are way over, right? These are running way over. I mean, output storage is full. Even with these guys having 4 citizens in here, they're using such little oxygen at the moment, it's more than enough for them to be handling it. So of course this is going to keep going here for a bit, and I don't know. I don't know if we can get another 425 in. I would like to hit 10,000. It'd be cool to hit 10,000, right? But I know that now that the population has literally bottomed out, to hit 10,000 would basically mean I would have to take this neighborhood up here and probably convert it into at least a level 4 or 5 neighborhood to get any speed out of it, right? And again, I have done this once with home appliances and watched it crash, so I'd really like to not do that again. We are having a power problem though. Woo, we can't have that. Just hold on a second. Woo. Listen, we already have enough. We will already have enough problems with the experiment, Mister. We do not need you crashing out the problems of my life. Here, yeah, that's good. All right, and done. Okay, cool. Just to make sure that we got a little extra on the extra. So what we'll do is I'll let this run for a bit anyway. You notice this number has not moved from 95.75. It hasn't moved at all. Not one bit. It's like, yep, I'm done. Right. But I'm going to let this run for a little bit. I'm going to bring it back one more time. We'll see if the number moves for a while, and if it doesn't, we're still going to have a look at the dev tools here at the end, just to kind of show you, dev tools, a little bit of the dev tools. Be sure to watch the tutorial on the dev tools if you haven't seen it already. I'm sure you would have. But, of course, dev tools allow you just to do some quirky things, right? So we'll come back, have a look, see you in a sec. Now, for those real computer smarty guys out there, I'm just bringing you back here just for a quick minute to show you this chart. Now, I usually cut this chart out, and ever since they put it in there a couple of versions ago, subversions, I usually just take it off the screen because it gets in the way of recording and all the other things. But one thing is, of course, is that it does show you... it does show you some stats of what's going on. What its tracking is the 20 milliseconds. Max is 71 milliseconds. That's what's going on. And it is using all 8 threads of my core, I guess. Hey, that's pretty cool. So, of course, simulation buildings is 25 milliseconds. Consume production and all that stuff. So it has multiple variables listed here, showing just min, max, averages, and intersection times and all that stuff. It does have here that at any one time, about 3,042 vehicles are on the road. That's pretty cool, right? It does say that I have made 3,709 road segments, and I have 4,761 buildings. I mean, if nothing else, even this detail alone is pretty cool, right? So with that, I just thought I'd bring this back in just to show you that little bit of detail. Now I'll let this run up a little bit. So we see we've gotten like 20 populations since I, showed you that last clip. But this will not be fast. This will not be fast, but we'll see what happens. Enjoy this part, and I will bring you back shortly. And look at that. That's right. We have made over 10,000 people. And the only trick to that is that it has taken about 18 hours to do that. The big problem, of course, again, is this immigration variable, which basically has shut everything down. And though you do get small amounts of immigration coming in very, very slowly, it just takes forever. So it took it takes 18 hours running to get about 600 people. That would mean about 50-60 days to fill out the city as it is at the moment. which of course I can't run the machine for 50, 60 days. So, but let's have a quick look around at the city in its current state. I do actually have one more experiment I'm going to try, though. While I was sleeping overnight, of course, I woke up with a slightly different plan. Now, it will not really change the population numbers, and I'm actually going to have to go back a few saves to try this experiment. That being said, I'm going to try one more experiment. So there's going to be one more episode. It may not be too long, but there's going to be one more experiment I'm going to try before we call this whole series a wrap up. Now, again, if at some point in time, if a mod comes out where we can remove the immigration rate, or something to that effect, or if someone figures it out through the dev tools that we're about to look at, then hey, I'm all for it. I'll jump back in for one more go of the save, and we'll bump this thing right up to the stratosphere. But let's have a look around. Just at everything as it is at the moment. The camera is very shaky when of course you do things. So of course we are here at the main city, District 1 itself, and of course this is holding the bulk of the population. We know that there's about 1,500 people out in the other districts. So we know there's about 8,500 to almost 9,000 people in this District 1 city. So of course, no, I kind of need you to do a thing. I kind of need you to do the sideways thing like you did with me last night there, game. Just work with me a bit. So in this case, of course, I was playing with camera angles and a whole bunch of stuff last night before going to bed. It was all very interesting. But anyway, of course, again, the city's design is very simplistic, and I think the biggest things you could do to help yourself in the game is to decide what it is that's going in your city versus what it is you're bringing from outside the city. And of course, we have 4 items being brought in from outside the city. Of course, on the right here, we have our home appliances and home robots, and on the left, we have our VR education and our computers. In the city, everything else is inside the city itself. And that's because a lot of this stuff is direct made. It doesn't require additional components to make. So, for example, the arenas, it just makes sports and ships it to the house, right? Schools, same deal, right? Like, it's not like schools need books, which needed paper, which needed things, right? Otherwise, you would have designed all that outside the city and then shipped that into the city. Schools are direct, parks are direct, the arenas are direct. Now, the food is not direct, but most of the food components are direct. So the meat is direct, the veggies are mostly direct. The fertilizer might not be, so the fertilizer to the meat, or the fertilizer to the vegetables is not direct to the food processing, but it's close enough where it doesn't really cause a lot of interference. And of course, that is why food is also in the city. Of course, oxygen production directly in the city. Simple food production directly in the city. So the big things outside the city, of course, is your computers and VR entertainment, and of course your home appliances and home robots, because they take up a lot of room and require a lot of resource to build. So of course this is the main city itself. Of course, running over on this side of the map, this would be I'll call it former District 2, but it's now kind of several mini districts, of course, and these are all level 2 housing because, of course, they need to upgrade with material to actually upgrade. But of course, here somewhere close to the center of the District 2 map is our one of two right-hand side big builds for District 1, and this, of course, is the home electronics, not home electronics. What do they call them? Not home electronics. They're calling it home appliances. Holy smokes! Brain blank there for a second. Of course, this is one of my favorite sections to actually watch. I mean, the traffic flow here. Let's just swing around here. The traffic flow in this area is just awesome to watch. It really is. I just love coming down here sometimes and just sitting here while doing work on the other monitor and just letting the traffic flow by, because it just flows and flows and flows, right? I must admit, it is pretty cool. It is a pretty cool place just to hang out, to watch all the traffic flow. And I mean, this is a really cool place to watch that happen. Of course, as we have home robots being delivered from the other location. The red trucks, of course, are the home appliances coming out, and of course they're merging into lanes, and they all got their dedicated lanes, and then they're all headed into the District 1 city. This is all pretty cool. Now, of course, up here towards the far upper right corner of the map, we keep going, right? Because, yeah, we're not done. This is, like I said, out here in the far, far corners of the planet is where we ship in our actual robots. And, of course, we have home robots and industrial robots out here. And, of course, because of the size of the build to make robots, they need a fairly large space and fair amount of material. So, of course, we've got our home robots going on with, of course, all the neuro factories going on in the background there. Ugh. Those factories, let me tell you, they drive me crazy. They really do. But we have surprisingly, for nearly 10,000 people, it really only takes about 20 robot factories to make, let's say there's 8,500 people. So let's say you had 8,000 people. I've had 20 factories almost the entire time. The only reason I have 22 now is that I found it was getting a little close. It was just coming really close to the line. Once we got around once it was around the 9,500 mark. So I wouldn't say each factory does 500 people, but I would say that each factory easily does about 400 people. So I guess that's kind of a number you can go with. Now, these 10 factories, industrial robot factories, man, I've got them doing everything. I mean, the industrial robot factories here, they've got this is all automated with industrial robot factories, right? So all of these factories here and in the back are all handled by them. And all of this over here is also being handled by industrial robot factories. And what is this over here? This, of course, is our VR education material, right? So the 100 and some chips over here, which of course are needed to not only make the microchip processors, but then of course you need them to make even more of the cool things over here, which then of course you need to make all this, to then just get 8, that's right, just 8 space foundries for your VR edumacations. Again, it's very surprising about how few of these you actually need. Now, again, we have a city of about, at level 6, let's say, you've got 9,000. So one of these buildings easily is doing 1,000 people, if not more. I would say each building could do probably 1,200. Let's say 1,250. I would say these 8 buildings could probably do the 10,000. I happen to know that that building there on the back left is running at 100% capacity full. It's not emptying out. The other 7 buildings are running at 100% or over, and they are constantly. I won't say be emptied out at 0, but they're never backlogged. But that one in the back corner still is. So, I could probably get away with doing a little bit more and then doing that. Now, this, of course, is District 3 here on the back side of the map. And again, this was broken down into much smaller neighborhoods for control. As experiments went along, we tried to see if, like, breaking it down into different sizes, different things. But nothing gets around the immigration rate variable, which is kind of unfortunate because, now don't get me wrong, there are 1,500 people living out here in these little districts, but we could have shoved these full of people, and probably had done great things. Now, what great things would I have done? I don't know. It's not like there's a lot of resources left on the map, especially now that we've come to the computer section of our wonderful build. And of course, here we have computers being made, all the things going on, and of course, for computers to be made, we've got our, again, heavy resource mining going on here, making a bunch of chips, making a bunch of microchips, which of course are then being used with aluminum to make our computers. Back here in the corner has been our science area the entire time. So of course we have motors and things being created there on the left. Here's our basic science going on here in the center, where you basically just need carbon and raw materials, or you need to be making microchips, which of course again requires just your iron and your copper to make that. And that will handle your blue and green science. Only your yellow science gets more complicated, and of course we stripped it. Now, yellow science was being made over here, but of course, as you can see, it got kind of stripped out long ago after we kind of got all the levels of sciences that we wanted, so as I could use those jobs for more important places, right? And unfortunately, again, I think one of the biggest things they could add to the game are on-off switches for buildings. Like, I would have rather just turn these buildings off and just say, look, I don't need these buildings right now, turn them off, let the workers go somewhere else, do a thing, and then when I have the population, we'll turn these buildings on, they can come here and work, and we can do things. But the only way you can do it now is to destroy the buildings. So that's all you can do. But this was our yellow science. And again, I guess when it came to the game, at first I thought, about building big mega sciences and all this stuff. But that really doesn't pan out well either. The game doesn't scale well. And again, it's all around that immigration piece. I really wish there was a way to get rid of that or turn that off using the dev tools. It just doesn't scale well to build big mega science factories, because you need population to run all this stuff. And because the immigration factor tends to hang you up so badly most of the time, you can never really get into doing big science. So that is a factor. With that, of course, let's head back now to the city itself and finally have a look at the dev tools. Of course, this side of the highway is always a lot of fun to watch too, because you've got a lot of traffic coming in here. Now, you don't have as much traffic as you would on the other side, because VR comes in at the top, way up there, and computers comes in here. So the two never really merge together like they do with the home appliances and the home robots. So there's no double traffic. It's either just mostly purple trucks down here for the computers, or up there it's the lighter colored trucks for the VR, the lighter purple trucks. But on the odd occasion, you'll see one come down here to join this line, because of course it's got to bring computers down in here, or VR equipment down here. But it's not nearly as busy traffic here as it is on the other side. And of course, going through the city, oh yeah, you betcha, going through the city. I mean, it is pretty intense. It is pretty intense. So let's now get out of this, and of course, whoa, easy now. No, I don't need tutorial anything, and that's not going to matter. It keeps putting the research thing up there, it drives me crazy. Let's now finally have a look, a really quick look at the dev tools. Now, I have a tutorial on the dev tools already out. So, of course, for those who've already watched that, that's great. This is just a kind of a quick way to show you how to get into it and what it is you can initially see. So, obviously, we can go to the screen here, and under settings, one of the options you have underneath here is what is called developer mode. Currently turned off. We can now turn this on and hit apply. Now that this has been applied, we can get back into the game. And now that we're back into the game, what can we do? Well, turns out, if you hit the F3 key on your keyboard, you're going to get a warning. Hey, debug mode is meant to be used in development. If you enable debug mode, you might get bugs. Okay, so in this case, we have now got debug mode. Now, this is where you can do some real crazy things, right? Like, you can do some crazy things. You know, you can inspect objects, right, with the object inspector, right, where you click on it and it will tell you everything about that particular building. And I had hoped, I had hoped to get rid of the crazy thing, but I have not figured that out yet. I have not figured out how to get rid of the immigration factor yet. Gosh darn. I had hoped to see a variable here that would have said immigration factor. And then I would have just said, yeah, don't do that. That would have been fine. But I have not found that yet. You can unlock all technology just by hitting this button. Boom, and it would be done. Of course, another thing you can do is at the start of the game, you get 20 free workers. And these 20 free workers don't ever use any of your resources. They don't need a house. They don't eat your meat. They don't use your veggies. They don't use your oxygen. These 20 workers that you get at the start of the game are like, I don't know, magical wizards or something. But you can add more of these magical workers, 50 at a time, by clicking the Add 50 Workers button. And, of course, what it does is it allows you to actually add workers to the city. So if I wanted a population of 21,000, I can have a population of 21,000. I can have the population. It just won't use the housing. It'd be 10,000 fake workers along with my 10,000 real workers. And that's not what I'm looking for. I want the workers to be the real workers living in these houses. And hey, if I mess up the houses and they move out of the houses, well, then that's what I want. But at the same time, if the housing's available, I want them to move into the houses, which is what's kind of slowing me down, right? So I don't want to add a lot of fake workers, but you could. You want 20,000 real. You want 20,000 workers in your city. You can have 20,000 workers in your city. No problem. Like, let's say you're having a hard time. With your, let's say you've had a really bad day, right? And what's going on here? What's with all the traffic all of a sudden? Hey, guys, what are you doing? Like, what's going on here? Okay, yeah, you guys worked that out. There must have been a fresh load of computers brought in. The latest in computer technology. They must have released the latest chip. The I-111 or something. It must be great stuff. So anyway, you can do all kinds of things with this debug menu. And, buildings cost resources. Or not, right? You're running a little short? Boop. Get rid of that. No problem. You just have different options here. Now, with that, I'm Max. This has been InfraSpace Experiment. And as I said, I do have one more episode to come out. Whoa, not that one. How about that one? There we go. I have one more episode to come out. I have one more experiment to try. It's going to take me a few hours. It's going to take me some hours to set it up. And I'm going to see if I can't get it set up. And now, is it going to boost the population any? No, I don't think so. But it might do something else. And so we're going to give it a shot, see what happens. Hey, I'm all about that see what happens thing. And, because, hey, I'm all about the see what happens. And when I bring you back for that episode, we're going to have a look at it and see how it goes. I will see you on the next one. Take care.